Last week we kind of got honest with ourselves and we looked at our goals, to kind of determine like what still matters, what doesn't matter anymore, what goals and dreams kind of make your heart beat faster, right? Like, but maybe since then, since last week, life kind of started kicking in. And so the things that got you all excited last week, you know, laundry might have piled up this week, emails didn't stop coming through, and, maybe someone got sick or you needed to get your car fixed. And suddenly you find yourself back into that swirl of survival mode all over again. And even though you know what your next step for your goal should be, we want to talk about, if that still hasn't happened, like what do you do? Because starting even if you have clarity, is still hard to do when your world is kind of full and distracting, right? And so maybe you sit back and you wonder, like, if I haven't started yet, like, what's wrong with me, or did I miss my chance? And I want to just today, if that is you, I want you just to take a deep breath, release it, and just let yourself know you haven't missed your chance. And so I'm excited because a lot of people constantly in my lifetime, my whole life, everybody comes to me and asks about how do I get so much done in a day? And so today we're just going to kind of walk you through like why it's been hard to begin or to finish, right? And why that doesn't mean that your dream really won't turn into reality. Because, in fact, it might actually mean that you are finally ready to start. Just naming something that might be sitting quietly in the back of your mind, right? You've had this dream, maybe for a couple of years even. And then you've talked about it, you've prayed about it, you've written it down, you've got a planner for your planner for your planner about this dream, right? And yet you still haven't found yourself fully getting started, not in the way that you actually imagined. And then part of you may be actually thinking too, like, if this dream really mattered to me, like, wouldn't I have done it already? And I want you to stop right there because the reason you haven't started isn't because it didn't matter to you. Maybe it's because it has mattered too much, right? This has been my reality. Like, it mattered so much that I wanted to get it right. And then it mattered so much that I was scared to mess it up. So you weren't being lazy, you were just protecting something that was totally sacred. And then, here's the thing is too, and I think this was my reality as well. I think God might have been protecting it for me as well. Okay. So here's a fun thing. There's a author that I love reading. His name's John Acuff, and he's written lots of books about all of these things. But he kind of talks about how in your 20s, that's your season of learning. You're just kind of learning your skill, learning what you're good at, just learning. And then in your 30s, you start editing and start improving. And then, so by the time you make it to your 40s, what's really neat is that's when your legacy starts to rise to the surface and you become a master of that skill. And that's when you try to find a place to share that mastery. And how neat that the Lord actually gives us that opportunity. So maybe the version from you 5 years ago wasn't wrong, but it might have been a little early. Okay, for being able to share that mastery that you hold inside. God's timing is perfect, and I believe that 100%. So this might actually be your season, though, to stop circling it on your calendar for that dream to be a reality in the future, right? We always just kind of go, after I get through this. And I want you to know this might be your season to fully step into it, messy and all. And so over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be addressing all the ways to do that. But now that we've kind of named a couple of reasons for why you may have not gotten started, let's get honest about what might have been in the way. Because clarity is really powerful in this step. Because if we don't understand and we don't have clarity, we kind of meet ourselves with resistance. It's a protective mechanism that we set in place to just keep us safe, right? And we'll keep repeating this cycle where we get stuck and stall out over and over if we can't bring clarity to the picture so that we can stop that resistance part of ourselves. And so let's talk about the three biggest blockers that I see in my life and in several of yours when I meet with you. And number one is perfectionism. And so that's that voice that continually is telling us if I can't do it right or perfect, I shouldn't do it at all. And then, or like if I start, I better have all those steps mapped out perfectly. And so that's where, if you're like me, I have a planner for my planner for my planner. Okay. And so here's the truth, that perfectionism creates these really ridiculous high standards. And really when it comes down to it, it's actually fear dressed up in as control. And then the longer we wait to be perfect or to have those perfect conditions, the longer we delay that obedience to the Lord and our purpose. Okay? And so I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to say, as soon as God asks, you can say yes and start moving, messy and all. Okay? This process for me walking through and building, making life beautiful again, it has not been a picture of perfection. Just going to tell you that right now. Number two that blocks this is something that I like to call noble distractions. This one's a little bit sneaky because it feels so justified. And so this is where we might say to ourselves, like, I can't work on my dream. I have people depending on me, right? Like I have a grandson. My daughter needs me to help babysit when I'm in town. And so I might hold off a project because they need me. That sounds really noble, but there's ways to get both. Okay. The other thing that you might be a noble distraction is I don't have time to write, or for in my case, or whatever, fill in the blank. I don't have time for whatever. I've got errands to run. I've got dishes in the sink. I've got laundry to wash, right? Or this event's coming up. And then another way that this could sound is like, I have too many commitments, like at work or church or to my family, that I don't have any time left or any energy left or any resources left. Right. But sometimes those good things can actually crowd out the one thing that you were uniquely called to do. And then when everything is urgent, nothing gets done with excellence at all. And that's the really sad part. And then number three, another big blocker is called fear of success. And this one kind of sounds silly when you say it out loud, fear of success, because of course we want to be successful, right? But the truth of it is, when we finally do have success, when you finally write the book or you finally start that ministry or you finally launch that business, then what happens, right? What if it grows? Like, what if it fails? What if people expect you to keep going or to give more? What if they see that I'm an imposter, right? Like these are thoughts that we all flood our minds with. And I mentioned John Acuff before, like he calls this the day before done, right? That's that moment right before you start is where fear screams the loudest, right? Because it's trying to keep you from starting. But stepping into the dream means stepping into visibility. And that I'm going to totally acknowledge and recognize that that right there is vulnerability, it's ownership, and it can feel really scary. In all fairness for you, your dream is probably bigger than you realize. Okay. Thankfully, the Lord doesn't reveal to us the biggest picture until we get moved a little bit along the path. Okay. But once you can name what's been in your way with these distractions and blocks, and there might be more than the three I just mentioned, but these are the three most common, you can choose a different response. Right. And that's exactly where we're going to be headed next. So let's go ahead and talk about like how you can actually move forward and start. Okay. And by the way, John Acuff has a book called Start, and it's really good. Some of this is totally based on that because I use it in my own life to jumpstart myself if I find myself in those three blockers. Okay. But clarity, it's so beautiful, right? Clarity without action becomes clutter. Okay. And so you don't need another idea to collect dust in your journal, right? You don't need another thing put on your back burner. It's piling up with stuff already, right? But you need a clear pathway, like room to spread your wings and fly. And here's the truth that we don't always talk about: you can't do everything that you're already doing and then also add to it your big audacious goal. It's not sustainable. And so trying to do it all and then failing because it's not sustainable, it's going to lead you to guilt, burnout, or even maybe both, right? And so before we talk about what to do, we have to talk about what to release and let go of to make more room. I'm not saying get rid of everything. I'm just saying you're going to have to get rid of something. Okay. And so maybe it's that extra scrolling time. If you do spend some of that time, maybe it's waking up 30 minutes early or staying up 30 minutes late. I want you to give yourself permission to make room to spread those wings for what is essential to fly. Okay. And once you do that, this next step, it's so easy, but step one for creating more space and learning what that something is that you're going to have to let go is maybe to cut your goal in half or cut it into smaller chunks, maybe in quarters, right? So if you've got this big audacious dream, let's first look at it in a different way so that it's not overwhelming. It doesn't crowd out your mind. So if your dream is write a book, let's think maybe I'm going to write 200 words by Thursday. Okay. So that might be a way to keep everything you currently have and squeeze in a little piece of your big audacious goal. Okay. Or maybe you spend 15 minutes just writing part of your chapter or outlining a chapter. Okay. So there's ways of doing that. So starting small, it doesn't mean you're thinking small. It actually means you're just starting. And that's the fun part, because once you start starting, it's like an avalanche and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and you can't help it yourself. But if you don't do squeeze in these little things or cut these goals into smaller chunks, you may never find the time to start, right? We can't wait for this big, huge moment of space and time to fit in our goal. Okay, so step two. And this one is a little intuitive, but I have to say it here, and that scheduling it like it matters. Okay, so don't wait until you have time. Put it on the calendar, protect it, treat it with the same priority that you would give to other people's needs. Okay. So it's like if you've booked a coffee date with a friend and you're not going to cancel on her, why can't you book a time to sit down for 15 or 20 minutes to do your thing? Right. And this is not being selfish. It's actually being a good steward of the skill set and the time and resources that the Lord is giving you. So you're working on this project with God. So if you'll cancel on yourself, think of it like I'm going to schedule time with the Lord and I can't cancel that. I like to have CEO meetings with him. It's kind of fun. All right, step three. This is build your cheer squad. Now, here's the thing. You were never meant to do these big, audacious goals by yourself. And it's really hard to actually do them by yourself. Every achieving person out there, if you sat down and talked with them, they're going to tell you that they have this full support team of people who are behind them. And some days you're going to doubt the worth that you hold or the value that people see in what you're doing. That's when you need someone in your corner, right? To say, keep going, this matters. So what this means is I want you to find a friend or come into the Facebook group and put it all out there, because we're all in the same space. We want you to succeed. When the water rises for one, it rises for us all. Okay. Email me if you need to. You don't need a huge team, but you just need one or two people who believe in your why and who aren't afraid to remind you of what you're going to forget, right? So here's what I want you to sit with this next week. Like, I want you to sit down, and this is all in the workbook, okay? What's one micro step that you can take towards your goal when you're breaking it down, either in half or in smaller bits, right? And what will you set down and say no to so that you have time to say yes for the purpose and the dream and the calling that you're moving towards? And then who will you invite to cheer you on and be in your corner, right? Like, don't overthink it. Literally, just take one step in the right direction. And because momentum, it doesn't come from motivation, it comes from movement. And I know we hear that all over the place these days, but there's going to be more about that in the coming weeks. So next week, we're going to go ahead and talk about how to finish what you start, how to push through that middle, the messy parts, the uncomfortable, the times when you're tempted to quit, so that you can actually see the fruit of what God's asked you to build. Until then, I'm totally cheering you on. I'm in your corner always. So reach out if you need to. And if you need a little clarity or encouragement, grab that workbook, email me at michelle@michelledayrose.com. I'm not going to let you do this alone. I promise. All right. We'll see you next week.